Okay, morning everyone, and welcome to Ian's RC Exploits. Welcome to my hangar, and you're joining me for part 2 of the Goosky RS4 Legend helicopter build. You can see there so far the progress I made yesterday. We went up to part 9 and we're going to carry on today from step 10. So coming in, I'm going to start the build. Okay, morning everyone. So basically we started on step 10, which is installing the tail boom clamps, which there's 2 of. Sadly I thought I was recording and I wasn't when I did this step, so I'm just going to have to talk through it. Very important to make sure that they're the correct way around. So basically we've got a hole that's got to go into a hole receptacle that we put a screw in, which actually keeps the tail boom in place. It goes into a slot on the aluminium tail boom and stops the tail boom from rotating. And then important as well, if I show you underneath, we've got the clamping system, which we put a screw in to tighten, which then clamps the tail boom in place. So nothing too difficult, pretty straightforward, making sure that we're using the correct Allen bolts. Okay, so that was actually step 10, and then also then moving on to step 11, which step 11 was simply just installing what I'm going to use as the receiver plate. So it was placed onto aluminium supports, obviously making sure that the flat side went against the plate and that you had the countersunk holes facing up on the plate to take the countersunk screws. That's going to move us briskly on to step 12. So I'll see you soon. Okay then, so the first part of step 12 is just installing this brace that goes between the 2 carbon fibre mainframes, and once it's installed then it's got these little rubber grommets that place over the screws to help support the canopy, stop it from getting damaged and pinched. And then the second part of step 12 is installing the landing gear. So I'll be back now once I've sourced the parts and we'll carry on with step 12. Okay, so there you can see the landing skids, and what we've got with this is no thread lock. We've got nylock nuts that need to be placed captive inside the landing skids. Nuts fitted in place, and then we're going to put the heli onto its feet for the first time during this build. Spin around for the last one. Hold my finger over the nut. And just finish torquing them all that. Being very careful on this kit not to over tighten anything. Okay, so that brings us to the end of step 12 and we're progressing on to step 13, which is going to be mounting what they say is the receiver mount, but we're going to be mounting the mount that we're going to use for the fly barless controller. So that's where it mounts. So if I have a quick look, see if I can find. So again, with carbon fibre, we've got countersunk holes on the top, and looking at the diagram, it's mounted that way around on top of the landing boom skids. So as I said in the instructions, it's saying that this is the receiver plate, but I think they've actually got that the wrong way around. This is the plate that the controller goes on. Just struggling with light today because it's a bleak cold day outside, and yesterday was a lot brighter, but okay, last screw. Touch a thread lock. Just wiping all the okay, yeah, so that's the fly barless controller plate fitted, and I'm just going to wipe it over then with some alcohol just to get rid of the remnants of the thread lock. And that brings us on to the second part of step 13, which is installing, this is the tail servo bracket. So just looking at the orientation, so we've got the brackets just in situ in the orientation that it needs to go, and we're going to I've just cleaned the bolts, and now we're going to just screw it into place. Just being very careful not to cross any threads. That's the first one. And the second, so So then looking at the diagram, we've got part fixing there, part fixing in there, and then that's the bracket for the tail servo to mount. Okay, so that's the end of the second part of step 13, and now I'm going to source the parts and move on to step 14, which is actually installing the rudder servo. So I'll be back once I've sourced all the parts and we'll get on with that. See you soon. Okay then, so the first part of step 14 is placing the servo horn onto the rudder servo. So I've got that in, following the instructions, in the correct orientation, as close to 90 degrees as possible. And then I'm going to fit the screw. Touch thread lock. Okay, so that's the servo horn, and then we've got to put a ball for the push rod 15 millimeters away from the center of the hole for the screw, and that is the second hole, the hole furthest out. So this one is with a nylock nut, so it doesn't need thread lock. Once it starts screwing it through the plastic, you can take a bit of a shove. And let's get a nylock nut on, hold that. With the spanner and tighten it all the way up. Okay, so that's the servo horn and ball fitted, and then we're just going to check now. It says to fit it from this side of the bracket, so they've must have altered the instructions, because I watched a build video where it was telling to put the servo in from the other direction, so that's good. So screws have been cleaned out. So we're looking at 4 mil. So we've got a brass washer to go to help hold the servo, so we're going to pop that on the screw. A little bit of an issue with this space, and I'll sit into this hole, so take that one out, start again I think. Okay, and it's gone in now into the recess. So if at first if it doesn't feel like it's going in, I always check to make sure what the problem is. Don't ever force these screws into the machined aluminium because it's so easy to strip. So okay, that's the rudder servo fitted, and the rudder servo arm with the ball for the ball link all fitted into the bracket. So that brings us to the end of step 14. I'm going to have a break now and have a well-earned cup of tea, and I'll be back shortly with step 15. Okay, so now we're on step 15, and the first part of step 15 is just installing a 5mm screw, which I've cleaned in alcohol, and it's got to be thread locked. And what this does is it goes into the tail boom clamp and stops the tail boom from rotating, just keeps the tail boom in place. So just add a little bit of thread lock and run up the thread. It's got to go through a hole there, and actually screws into the tail boom clamp. Now I can't see if so it's definitely in place. And then the second part of step 15 are the main rotor linkages, and basically the instructions show you that the side closest to the hole you put the ball link on counterclockwise, but it's wrong. it's actually clockwise, so what it tells you in the instructions is actually opposite to what you've got to do, but it won't really make a difference because you know, the most important part of the linkage really is that you make sure when you fix it that the numbers are facing out, and the reason for that is because the linkages are contoured on the one side, so is it easier to snap onto the ball. And if I just zoom in a little bit, it'll be very difficult to see, but numbers facing out, and then as I said, the side that snaps onto the balls are contoured, and they've got to be an overall measurement of 46.4 millimeters, and obviously these are important because they will be adjusted then to get 0 degrees pitch at centre stick. So that's the end of the 2 steps in step 15, and we're going to move on now to step 16. Okay, then moving on, so we're moving on to step 16 in the manual, and that is actually putting the swash plate on and then the main rotor head. So swash plate slides down, so just going to get the linkage just roughly in place for the swash plate. And then put the rotor head down. I'm going to pass. So I've connected the links to the swash plate from the cyclic servos. I connected the washout arms, and then brings me to connect the main rotor links. So, and remember now to keeping the numbers facing out. So nice snap. I know, and it can be very, very tricky to connect. But much easier with the ball joint pliers. So numbers out. This one actually goes on quite nicely. And then use the pliers to get the bottom link. So there's the washout arms connected and the servo links. And that brings us to the end of step 17. You can see now that all the linkages are on from the servos to the swash plate, and then from the swash plate to the main rotor arms. So So that's the end of step 17, and then we're going to be moving on to step 18, which is installing the anti-rotation bracket. Putting the bracket into place and then cleaning the screws and then thread locking. Touch a thread lock. So get the bracket into place. Just gently add a screw. I'm not going to go mad because it's clamping the plastic of the anti-rotation bracket. Okay, so that's the first part of step 19, and then the next stage is actually putting the tail boom into position. Okay, so we're adding the tail boom, step 19. I don't know whether you can see what I've done is I've added a piece of cable and taped the belt to the cable and tape the belt together, because that way then it'll make it easier to pass the tail boom into the clamp. Basically the part of the tail boom that goes into the clamp is the part with just the little groove cut out, and the two holes then on the other end of the tail boom are where you attach or the tail rotor. So I'm going to pass the cable through the boom. I'm going to just slide the boom into position, and yes, the screw definitely does stop it from rotating, so that's good. The tape, and then just check down then to make sure that the belt is not twisted. And then we're going to go on to step 20 then, which is starting to assemble the tail and the tail linkages. So I'm going to have to source quite a few parts, and once I've done that and I start assembling the tail, I'll be back. See you soon. Okay, one part I nearly overlooked was the tail linkage support bracket, which just slides on to the tail boom. I mean, you know, I could have actually just forced it open and put it on, but there you are. Got to make sure that that is there to guide the tail push rod. Okay. Okay then, so we're starting on step 20, and what we're doing now is starting to put together the tail box and the tail control arm. So we're just going to fix this bracket onto the tail box using these screws. The screws have been cleaned and they need to be thread locked, so That's the first one in situ. So don't go mad not to over tight and strip. And that's sat into place nice. Now looking at the tail box, it doesn't tell what the orientation is, but looking at it, it doesn't matter which way around it goes. It seems it's just like both sides are like a mirror image. So that's that part done, and then we're going to get the tail control arm, making sure that you can see the grooves in it, and then the ball needs to be put into the longer part of the arm but from the bottom. So again, it's going to be thread locked as well. So yeah, longer arm from the bottom. So that's that one installed, and then we've got to then fix this to the bracket, making sure that we place a washer. And we're going up from the bottom of this one, so I'm going to add just a touch of thread lock. Not too much because we don't want it to get into the bearing. And then that screws into the bottom. And you've got to make sure, obviously, don't go too mad with the tightening. It needs to rotate nice and smooth because that's going to control your pitch slider, and that is rotating really nice and smooth. Just make sure now everything is sorted. Which it is. And that's going to bring me to the end of the Goosky RS4 Legend helicopter build part 2. Yesterday's video was ridiculously long, and I thought that I would just do it just a little bit shorter today. So see you soon for part 3, and thanks for joining and thanks for watching. Bye.